Thank you for joining me on Weir Radio today. My name's James, and today I'm in Barnard Castle with a very special guest. Now, you know him as one of the antiques experts on shows like Bargain Hunt and Antiques Road Trip, but he's also an author, a painter, and a classic car enthusiast. Thanks for joining me today, David Harper. How are you, David?
James, great to see you. Thanks for coming to see me, in actual fact, in Barnard Castle. It's a delight to welcome you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's always great to be back in Barney. So, on to some questions for you, but we're all dying to know. First of all, can you let us know, when did you first get into antiques, and what sort of age were you?
Oh, blimey, James, that's a very, very long story. I was about 5 years old, so about as early as I can remember. I loved history, and I discovered at a very early age that handling objects was a connection to the past. It was the closest you're ever going to get to travelling through time. And so because of my love of history, I developed a love of objects from the past, and they're called antiques. And that's where the story began.
So is it something that you can sort of like learn? Because I never hear of anybody sort of like going to university to study antiques. Yeah. Is it something that you learn on the, like, almost like learn on the job? Or is there another sort of like way around it? Is it just constant reading of books and things like that? Is that how it works?
Well, that's how it worked for me. There are other routes in, working with an auctioneer, going to university and studying fine arts. But to be honest with you, that is not the way to do it. The most successful people I know in this business are in the business because they're full of passion for the objects, and they read, they devour information, and they've been doing it forever. So self-taught and learning by mistake and learning by losing money, putting your money where your mouth is, that's the best way to learn about antiques. Make the odd mistake and you'll never make the same one twice. So yeah, absolutely passion driven, learn as you go.
It's not something that you would probably just like go into thinking, I want to get into antiques because I want to make loads of money, because there's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. It's just, like I say, it's just learning on the job, really, isn't it?
It's an absolute passion business. If you want to make loads of money, genuinely go into another business. Because the antiques world, yes, you can make money, but let's say you buy something and you make really good money, make a great margin. Once you've done that and you've bought it, you've got to go and buy it again. You can't order another one, another 50, because it's a good selling line. You've got to go and find another object again. So you're starting the process of treasure hunting day after day after day. And so, yeah, you do it because you love it. The more you love it, the more money you make. But if you really want to make genuinely loads of money, go into the corporate world. Forget the world of antiques.
Yeah, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head there. Moving on to Bargain Hunt. Now, how did you manage to get onto Bargain Hunt? I mean, obviously, you know, we've all sort of like grown up with programs like the Antiques Roadshow, and there's so many different people in that trade now. What was it that's like made you so special to become an expert on Bargain Hunt?
Well, I've never been called special before, James, but anyway, apart from my mother, she's always very special.
That's allowed.
Yeah, that's all mothers think their sons are special. It came about by accident. I did radio first, so I had a shop here in Barnard Castle 20 odd years ago. Local radio station called me, Radio Tees, will you come and do an interview? I said yes. I panicked. It was the following day. I was petrified. I couldn't sleep. It was the most awful experience until I did it, just like we're talking.
Yeah.
And I realised that the presenter on the radio show, just like you, they were just normal people.
Yeah.
And I didn't think they were going to be normal. No offence to you, right? Seriously, I thought people in the media were a bit special, and I mean that in I think they were going to be more intellectual. They were a bit. I was a bit afraid of meeting them, and especially talking to an audience live. But I've discovered I loved it. I think I love the sound of my own voice. I have been accused of that, but then, after several years of banging on doors, I eventually got into television. It took me a long time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're doing the episodes of Bargain Hunt, obviously we see it as it's an hour-long program. You've got there's yourself against another expert, and you've got your teams. You get an hour. Is that like exactly an hour that you've got to get those items in?
It is exactly an hour. It might take a little bit longer because it's an hour on a stopwatch. So you get 1 hour shopping. So let's say we went out and we shopped for 5 minutes and we buy something. Then the stopwatch is stopped and the cameraman gets shots of that item from all different angles, and then we're basically frozen in time. Once they've got the shots they need, stopwatch on, and you're off again. So yeah, you genuinely get only 1 hour of shopping.
Blimey, yeah. I mean, I thought that would be the case because I mean, it's obviously quite heavily featured when sometimes you see the clock ticking down from like a minute and things like that. Now, when you bought the 3 items and then you go off and you'll buy an item with money that's left, how long is it between that and the actual auction?
Well, I mean, that can vary. So we'll generally film bargain hunts over a weekend. We'll film 4 shows, the basics of 4 shows. Then we'll meet for another day some weeks later to film the ending to the 4 shows. It might be a couple of weeks later.
Is it just? I thought it'd be sort of like maybe around about a month, something like that.
Yeah.
It just all depends on where you're going to be having, obviously, like an auction and things like that.
Exactly, and it's a well-oiled machine. Anything BBC is really slick, and it will. And you'll film the ending to 4 shows in one go.
Yeah. Now we've just had 20 years of Bargain Hunt. Now, originally, David Dickinson was the main presenter on there, and then we've gone on to Tim Wonnacott. Currently, they've been over the past sort of like maybe it's two years or so. We've had presenters who were doing the experts who were doing the presenting. Would you like to see a permanent person presenting it? I think there's some really, really strong candidates for that. But what do you think? Would you like to see a permanent presenter?
Yeah, I think I would, and I want it to be me, James. Yeah. I've stepped aside from Bargain Hunt because I've got other things on the go, but I have said to them I'll come back to present it. So the offer is there. I want to present it. I've done my 15 years on Bargain Hunt as being an expert, and now there are other challenges, opening up to me. But I love the show. It's a great show. I'll always be a fan of it, and I would like to present it. So there you go. Put that out into the ether.
David, you're very honest. And I'll tell you something, if it wasn't to be you that was going to be a permanent presenter, can I just say someone who I think is absolutely fantastic at presenting, Natasha Raskin.
Oh, that's because you fancy her, James.
Yes, highly. But no, I do. There seems to be quite a lot of times I do actually see her on there, but I think she does like really well when she's on there. So if it's not going to be you,
right,
we'll have Natasha.
Okay. Well, listen, I was working with her only 2 days ago in Scotland on the Antiques road trip, and I must say Natasha is a great friend, and I do agree with you.
Yeah.
She's actually a really good standalone presenter. So I concur.
She is. I think she's really good. Now, a question I've asked a few times on social media to a couple of antiques experts, Mark Stacey and Philip Serrell. Neither of them would give me an answer. They just sort of said, I'm not going to tell you that. I think you're the man who's going to probably tell me this. Now, when you're either on Antiques Road Trip or on Bargain Hunt, who's the one person you always want to beat?
Wow, the one person I always want to beat. Well, I suppose it might just be Mark Stacey and Philip Serrell, mightn't it? Based on the responses you've had from them.
Yeah.
And in a way, that probably sums. They're great guys, both of them. Both highly competitive. So maybe that's why they didn't answer your question. And by nature, we're all very highly competitive. We wouldn't actually be on telly if we weren't.
Oh, of course not. No.
But I think for me, I've mellowed over the years. When I first got into TV, I wanted to beat everybody. I wanted to be the best. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not that bothered. I know that good television content doesn't necessarily mean you're making money. I always believe that a good loss on TV is as good as a good profit on TV, because it's all about making good TV. So as long as it's honest, truthful, and you buy it with passion and heart, and you know what you're talking about. Because I love expertise, and anyone I see on television who isn't really an expert really winds me up. And TV is going that way more these days, less about expertise. It used to be you'd get a job on a television show because you were an expert in your field. Now it's less so, the shoehorning non-expert. So as long as I see an expert really talk with passion and they lose money, I don't care. So what was the question? Who would I want to beat? Yeah, let's say Philip Serrell and Mark Stacey. How's that?
Yeah. I'm happy with that. It's only taken 3 experts, but I've finally got an answer. But thanks very much for that, David. What is it that you like to do in your spare time? Obviously, you've got the shop here. You've still got obviously the TV work. What is it that sort of like that you like to do just to sort of like kick back a bit and just enjoy things?
I love day trips away.
Yeah.
going out with the dog and the wife to the beach, very basic, with a flask of tea and sandwiches. Seriously, that to me is just the perfect day out. So we do loads of that, but over and above my TV work, I paint.
Yeah.
So I'm a professional painter. I sell my work. That kind of came about by accident. About 10 years ago, I started painting. An art dealer saw my work. She liked it. We put on an exhibition. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done commercially in business in my life, because hanging paintings on a wall, it's like hanging your soul on a wall for people to criticize.
Yeah.
And it's all right when you're handling antiques and someone says, I hate that antique. You didn't make it. When they look at your work and say, I hate that, it's horrible, it's really hard to deal with that. I'm used to it now. And I realise that not everybody will love your work, and mine's very abstract, it's very out there. But I paint, and painting for me is great mental therapy.
Yeah.
So sometimes I start painting at 5 o'clock in the morning, particularly in the summer. I paint outside, and I'll paint all day till, I'll have breaks in between till it gets dark.
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night occasionally, and I'm happy. I just go somewhere else. It's a form of meditation, and I'm very lucky because that hobby stroke therapy I give myself to calm down, because my brain never stops, I get paid for because people buy my paintings. So it's a win-win. So that is my go-to thing to do: paint, unload onto a canvas. I adore it.
So when was it that you started the painting then? Is that something that sort of like happened around the time when you got into antiques? Or is it sort of like just happened later on in life?
Yeah, it happened later on. I loved painting as a kid at school. I was an avid painter, but an art teacher once said to me, Harper, nobody in their right mind paints like you, right? Those words rang in my head all my life, and I stopped painting. But later on, after many years in TV, and I was going through a classic, I think a midlife crisis actually, I felt I needed to paint. I was dreaming about painting. And after about a year of genuinely dreaming that I was a painter, I started painting. And the dreams I'd been having of painting these wild images in colour all started pouring out onto the canvas. So it worked. So I painted for a year without anybody seeing my work. And then, as I said, this art dealer saw it, and it went on from there. So yeah, it came, mid-40s is when I first started painting again. And it's gone from strength to strength, and I'm very pleased to say that my work is in several museums around the world, as well as big art investment collections also. So some of my pieces are stashed in vaults, James, and some people, genuinely, some people might look at my work and say, it's best stuck in a vault, no one can see it, but it's in vaults as investments. So there you have it. What can I tell you? It's just funniest things happen.
I mean, you wouldn't think of something like that, sort of like however many years ago, thinking that you're going to have paintings that are going to have to be kept in vaults.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
And even with me saying it, it's hard
to comprehend it, isn't it?
It's a bit like being on TV. I said to someone the other day, because I've been on TV for so long now that I'm recognised all of the time. And when people recognise me, even now, I sometimes I wonder why they're asking me for my autograph or a picture. Yeah. And then I've got to remind myself, of course, I'm on telly. Yeah. But all I'm doing on telly is just a job. It's just my work.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You forget the power of television, how many people think they know you. It is remarkable. And after all these years, I'm still amazed at the power of television.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. And like you said, to be recognised not just all over the country, I dare say you could probably go to places in the world and somebody would recognise you.
They do, genuinely. I mean, the BBC shows are sold to about 60 countries around the world, and I'm dubbed in Malaysian as an example.
Blimey.
Apparently I'm much funnier in Malaysian than I am in English.
I wonder who does your voice.
I wonder. Yeah. I've never heard it, but I've been told.
Right. One thing there was many questions that I wanted to ask you, but one thing I definitely had to get onto. We had to get onto your daughter Hetty,
yes,
who's in the band Tiffany Twisted. How have things gone for her over all of this COVID? I mean, she wouldn't have been able to do any. Well, she could do some music, but she can't perform. How she found it over the last sort of like 17, 18 months?
Well, on the one hand, it's been really tough because she hasn't been able to gig, and so money's been tight. But on the other hand, she's found it very therapeutic. Again, a bit like I have as well, where we've been able to recalibrate, and she's been doing a lot of writing. She recorded at Abbey Road Studios just before lockdown, funded by Dolby Atmos, this new sound system, like 3-dimensional sound. So Dolby have recorded her in that, and then COVID hit, so things have gone a bit quiet. But now things are just picking up again. She's gigging. And she loves it. I mean, I can't get her back to Barnard Castle, by the way.
No.
I cannot. She lives in Soho. I mean, how different is that? It's right in the middle of Soho.
You can't get more chalk and cheese than Soho in
You
Barnard
can't.
Castle, can you?
But she is Miss Soho. She loves it. And getting her home to Barney is like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
So she loves being a musician in London. So yeah, she's getting there slowly. But again, you know, they say it takes a long time to become an overnight success, and anybody in the world of entertainment knows that. People generally think that someone just appears from nowhere. They don't realise the years that go into it, and Hetty is putting the years in. She's putting her apprenticeship time in.
Like you say, it isn't like an apprenticeship. She's putting her time in. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. They released their first EP in October last year called This Is The End. I actually listened to it on the way over here today. I've followed her on Facebook for a couple of years now. What an amazing voice she does have. Honestly, I wouldn't just say that. She has an absolutely fantastic voice. What do you make of the whole style of her? I mean, she's got a fantastic look. I mean, women in rock bands, as you know, there's not many. No. But she's got a fantastic look, a fantastic sound. The music is absolutely fantastic as well. Are you a massive fan of that genre of music?
Oh, very much so. I mean, Hetty and I she used to work with me for a little while when she first left school rather than go to university. She spent a year with me, and we listened to nothing but, you know, what did we listen to? Snow Patrol, the Foo Fighters. Hetty was writing then. She's been writing music since she was about 11. And she writes all the music, all the lyrics, and performs it all with her band.
Yeah.
So she is 100% invested in that music. So when you listen to those lyrics, they are so deep, it is unbelievable. I have to ask her sometimes, what do you really mean by this? Got to read between the lines. So it's serious stuff, and it is very much me. And I know she's my daughter, so I'm going to be biased, but I'm actually her biggest critic.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, someone like that needs a critic. And so, you know, we fight over it. I do criticise her work, but I adore her work. And I think she hopefully appreciates my critiquing as she critiques my work, both painting and TV work. But you've got to be professional with these things. And no, I am a massive fan of her music, and I appreciate what you say. I listen to it all of the time. It's very powerful and very moving.
I remember it was just a few weeks ago, I was speaking to somebody about writing music, and I can't comprehend how anybody can write a song. It's just, you know, if I spent a day with a pen and a piece of paper, I couldn't write a song about it. I don't think I could even write a poem, let alone a song. So, you know, no, fair play to her, and hopefully there's going to be continued success for the band. One person we also have to mention, Dominic Cummings. Was this the greatest free advertising Barnard Castle has ever had?
You know what? Genuinely, I don't care what side of the political argument you are on. If you think the fact that Dominic Cummings came to Barnard Castle or didn't, whatever, was a bad thing, you're off your trolley. Because for tourism, for Barnard Castle, it has been unbelievable. If we all got together in Barney and put a fortune in, whatever we could afford, we could never write a cheque big enough to pay for the marketing value that Barnard Castle got from that. And look outside, the place is packed.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, isn't it?
As far as I'm concerned, he can come back anytime he likes.
Yeah, I think he'd come back to a hero's welcome, I think, for a lot of businesses around
all
the area.
Business people, would buy him a pint.
He was literally the talk of the country when it happened, and of all the places, Barnard Castle just suddenly sprigs up like that.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you've got everybody coming into the town. You've got people spending money. Fantastic for the economy, because Barnard Castle, as everybody knows who's been here, is a beautiful place, and it's nothing without the people who are coming in.
Absolutely, it's made. The tourists make it.
Yeah.
The diversity of visitors from all over the country and all over the world make Barnard Castle a very special place. And I travel all over the country filming in little towns like this. Genuinely, I don't think there's another town quite like it.
No.
Not quite as successful either. I mean, all the shops are taken. And when one does go, another one comes in. It's very vibrant.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you, Dominic.
Yeah. I mean, you usually find with like market towns, a lot of them are kind of the same, but there's definitely something about Barnard Castle. I was quite lucky enough. I moved actually to Barnard Castle when I was round about 12.
Yeah.
I was only here for about 6 weeks before I moved on to Bishop Auckland. But I loved being like right next to the town, and
Yeah.
you know, as a 12-year-old, just like walking into Barnard Castle.
Yeah.
Used to go to the chocolate shop.
Yeah.
I used to go down to I think it was either Blockbuster or Ritz Video to hire out videotapes. But yeah, I had 6 fantastic weeks here.
Yeah.
But I've got a son who plays football for Barnard Castle as well.
you? Great.
Yeah, up at Green Lane School. So it's got a lot of great memories for me. Even though I'm not from this part of the northeast, but yeah, it is an absolutely lovely place. Now I'm going to move on to your books now, David. I've actually read one of them, A Romp with the Georgians.
Yeah.
How hilarious is that book, and how disgusting were Georgian people?
I know, it's great, isn't it? I mean, that's my favourite period in British history, 1714 to 1830, the Georgian period. And I've always loved it, and I wrote it for a show. So I've got this show, it's kind of COVID killed it a bit, but
Yeah.
I do A Romp with the Georgians, so it's telling funny stories from the Georgian period. And you're right, it is funny, and it's real. There's nothing funnier than reality.
Yeah.
But the great thing about the Georgians, James, was they were the foundation builders of the Industrial Revolution. If it wasn't for the British Georgians, we wouldn't have what we have today. We probably wouldn't have transportation as we have it. They developed trains, they developed steam-powered medicines, they improved vastly
Yeah.
the lives of the working people, not just in this country, but all over the world. So they were funny, they were dastardly, they were crazy, eccentric, and their DNA, by the way, is in you.
Yeah.
And it's in every listener listening to this right now. We should be deeply proud of them, and I am. And on top of that, the icing on the cake, they abolished slavery. The Georgians
Yeah.
were the first major power, the British, to abolish slavery in 1807. And then the British spent 60 years fighting slavery all over the world. Thousands of British people died. The British public funded the anti-slaving ships. The Royal Navy fought all over the world, slavers. And that is something that isn't talked about enough. I do mention it in my book. So the book is full of funny stories, but also heartwarming stories and stories that should make us very, very proud of our Georgian ancestors. And here we are in Barnard Castle in a Georgian building.
Exactly, and you've probably got a few Georgian items kicking
Plenty,
around.
plenty, yeah.
I mean, what I enjoyed about the book, I think probably is one of the funny stories I think from there was the one about selling wives.
Yeah.
At market, you'd literally turn up, your wife's like hands would be bound together, almost like leading cattle.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would be a case of it would be her actual lover who would
Yes.
who would actually buy her.
Yes.
And I mean, I wish this had come into effect maybe a couple of years ago, and my divorce wouldn't have been so costly.
Exactly.
But what a way to get divorced!
Listen, just take her to market day anywhere in the world and just put her up for sale. That is officially divorcing. So it's a cheap way of a Georgian getting a divorce, because the wife, by the way, was always up for it. So there's no accounts in Georgian history of any wife ever complaining about being sold in auction, because it was a way of getting a cheap divorce rather than going through the court system like we do today as well. It costs us thousands of pounds. As long as you publicly denounce the fact that you want to be separated, that's it. Neither party can then take the other party to court. So it's a cheap way of getting around it.
They wanted to get away from the shark lawyers, didn't they?
They did. The shark lawyers, which is, of course. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, David, the shop that you've got now, which I've been in here several times before, it's now been run by a couple of friends of yours, Tim and Angela Bateson. How long has that been? Have they been in the store? Because obviously, as well as your stuff, they've also got their own stuff that they sell. What sort of things are they bringing into the shop?
Yeah, I think they've really modernised it in actual fact. So we've got antiques in here. It's been changed. It's called the Old Barnard Castle Curiosity Shop. And it's really curious because it's full of vintage items, antiques items, my paintings. Tim, the guy, and Angela, Tim's a painter, so he sells his artwork as well, so prints and originals. And then lots of really interesting, quirky tourist pieces. So you can come here and spend a few pounds on some incense, a kite to play, down by the river, or, several thousands of pounds on a piece of art or an antique. So Tim and Angela have really modernised it, and I'm never here. I'm always away somewhere, and it's wonderful. They sell my pieces, and I just help out by dipping in and dipping out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the last time I was in here, I actually got Romp with the George and the book signed, so I don't think they were in then. Have they been in very long?
No, just beginning of July. So we've been
really?
planning it for some time, but only a couple of months. But they've done wonders with the place. Yeah, again, they've just modernised the antique retail genre.
Yeah.
It looks really fresh and exciting.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's the old Barnard Castle Curiosity Shop here in Barnard Castle. It's number 24, The Bank. You can pop in and see Tim and Angela Bateson. Maybe David will pop around at some point. But like I say, he is a very busy man, and we certainly appreciate him taking some questions off me today. Well, David, all I can say is thank you very much for your time. I've learned so much more from you. I'll continue to watch you on Bargain Hunt, because there's always replays of you on Bargain Hunt, and obviously on Antiques Road Trip as well. I can't thank you enough. It's been fantastic, very kind, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
James, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.